You have, guess what? I have no money. Everyone sitting on me. I go and check on her every day. She's calling. I go and check on her every day. Yeah, you know.
Season 12, Episode 15 delivers a shocking twist that leaves both the audience and cast members stunned. In Love and Hip Hop Atlanta, where drama and personal struggles are always in the spotlight, one of the show's longtime stars, Lil Scrappy, drops a revelation that no one saw coming. Known for his strong personality and rocky relationships, Scrappy finds himself facing a betrayal that shakes his entire world. The episode begins as a seemingly ordinary day for Scrappy and his wife Bambi. Despite their history of ups and downs, they are focused on co-parenting and maintaining a sense of normalcy for their children. They spend time as a family, attempting to strengthen their bond, but beneath the surface, something far more serious is unfolding. What starts as a peaceful moment quickly spirals into turmoil. Scrappy, a man who has always prided himself on his resilience, reveals a truth that turns his world upside down. Over the past few years, he has noticed unusual charges appearing on his credit card statements. At first, he dismisses them as minor errors or misunderstandings, but the transactions keep adding up. What began as small, easily overlooked expenses soon escalates into something far more alarming. The charges increase in both size and frequency until they reach a staggering total, $1 million. The moment he realizes the full extent of the situation, Scrappy is in shock. His initial thought is that his card has been stolen, possibly by a stranger or someone who had temporary access to his finances. However, as he digs deeper, a disturbing pattern emerges. The transactions are not random. They all trace back to one person, his wife, Bambi. The weight of the betrayal hits Scrappy like a ton of bricks. He recalls moments in their marriage, when he had given Bambi access to his financial accounts, trusting her to handle household expenses or emergencies. Never in his wildest dreams did he imagine that this trust would be used against him in such a devastating way. This isn't just about money, it's about deception, dishonesty, and the breaking of trust. Bambi had spent an enormous sum without his knowledge, not just a few purchases here and there, but an amount that could alter their family's future. Scrappy struggles with his emotions as he confides in his closest friends and family. His face says it all. He is devastated. Some of them are in shock, while others are furious, urging him to take legal action immediately. The overwhelming advice is clear. He must protect his finances before things get even worse. Yet, Scrappy is hesitant. He doesn't want to bring his private affairs into the public eye, especially with their children involved. No matter how betrayed he feels, he is desperate to shield his kids from the fallout. Despite his inner turmoil, Scrappy knows he has to confront Bambi. The tension is thick when they finally sit down to talk. He looks at her, his heart pounding, as he lays the bank statements on the table. At first, Bambi doesn't seem to grasp the gravity of the situation. Her calm expression only adds fuel to Scrappy's frustration. He expected guilt, regret, anything other than indifference. Then, something shifts. As she scans the statements, her eyes widen and her face drains of color. The realization sinks in. At first, she denies everything, insisting that there must have been a misunderstanding. She claims that something went wrong somewhere, that maybe there was an error or miscommunication. But Scrappy has the proof. Every charge, every transaction, every withdrawal is linked directly to her. There's no denying it. The truth is right in front of them, undeniable and painful. As the argument intensifies, Bambi's initial shock fades, replaced by overwhelming emotion. Tears well up in her eyes as she finally breaks down, offering an explanation that Scrappy struggles to believe. She insists that the money wasn't spent out of greed or selfishness, but out of desperation. She admits that she has been struggling, feeling trapped in a marriage where she couldn't express her needs. Instead of talking about it, she turned to spending as a way to cope, convincing herself that she was taking care of their family in her own way. But for Scrappy, the damage is done. He listens, but his heart is already broken. Trust is not something that can be easily rebuilt, especially after such a deep betrayal. He asks her the one question that lingers in his mind. Why? Didn't you just tell me? Bambi sobs, unable to find an answer that will make things right. She knows she messed up. She knows she has put their marriage in jeopardy. But whether or not Scrappy can forgive her is another question entirely. As the episode comes to an end, viewers are left with uncertainty. Will Scrappy and Bambi find a way to mend their shattered relationship? Or has this betrayal marked the final chapter in their marriage? One thing is clear: things will never be the same again. Bambi felt overwhelmed by the pressures of being a mother, a wife, and dealing with her own struggles. She didn't know how to express the weight she carried, so she turned to shopping as a way to escape. For a brief moment, spending money made her feel like she had control over something, even when everything else felt impossible to handle. But what started as a temporary relief quickly spiraled into something much bigger. When Scrappy discovered the bank statements, he felt completely blindsided. He couldn't believe that Bambi, the woman he trusted, had done something so reckless. The betrayal wasn't just about the money, it was about trust. To him, it felt like she had taken away his sense of security, the foundation of their relationship. His mind raced with questions. How could she hide this from me? Why didn't she come to me instead of doing this? As they sat down to talk, the air between them was thick with tension. Scrappy placed the bank statements on the table, his voice steady but laced with disappointment. "Explain this," he said, his eyes searching hers for honesty. At first, Bambi looked confused, almost as if she didn't recognize what she was looking at. Then, as the reality sank in, her expression changed. She hesitated, her lips parting slightly as if searching for the right words. There must be some mistake," she said weakly. Scrappy shook his head. "No mistake. These are your purchases. All of them." Silence filled the room. Bambi's face paled as she scanned the pages. She tried to deny it at first, grasping at the possibility that there was some misunderstanding. But with each number staring back at her, it became impossible to ignore the truth. There was no mistake. She had done this. Tears welled up in her eyes. "I wasn't trying to hurt you," she finally whispered, her voice cracking. Scrappy exhaled sharply, shaking his head in frustration. "Then why? Why would you do this?" Bambi wiped at her tears, her hands trembling. "I felt like I was drowning, Scrappy. Between the kids, our marriage, everything. I felt alone. I didn't know how to talk to you about it, and shopping was the only thing that made me feel in control, even if just for a little while." Scrappy's jaw tightened. He wanted to believe her. He wanted to understand. But the damage was already done. "Do you know how this makes me feel? You didn't just spend money, you broke my trust. That's worse than anything else." Bambi sobbed, burying her face in her hands. "I didn't mean for it to get this bad. I thought I could fix it before you found out, but it just got worse. I kept digging deeper into this hole and I didn't know how to get out." Scrappy leaned back, rubbing his hands over his face. He wanted to be angry, he wanted to yell, but more than anything, he just felt exhausted. "I don't know if we can come back from this," he admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. The weight of his words hit Bambi like a punch to the stomach. She knew she had messed up. She knew she had hurt him deeply. But hearing him say that their marriage might not survive this, that was a pain she wasn't prepared for. "I'm sorry," she said, her voice thick with regret. "I don't expect you to forgive me right away. I don't want to lose you." Scrappy looked at her, his eyes filled with conflict. He had loved Bambi for so long, through so many ups and downs, but this betrayal had cut deep. Could he really move past it? Could he ever fully trust her again? As the night stretched on, neither of them had an answer. The silence between them said more than words ever could. They were at a crossroads, and whatever came next would change their relationship forever. For fans of love and hip-hop, this was a moment no one saw coming. Bambi and Scrappy had weathered storms before, but this one felt different. The fallout of this revelation wasn't just a scandal, it was a defining moment in their relationship. Would Scrappy find it in his heart to forgive Bambi? Could they rebuild the trust that had been shattered? Or was this the breaking point that would finally push them apart for good? Only time would tell. But one thing was certain: things would never be the same again.